to the play. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 49 on the defense. 15-yard penalty. Third down. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Unsportsmanlike conduct.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Welcome back. This is part 2 of the mega NFL season preview. If you missed part 1, went through the AFC, gave you all 4 of your division winners, 3 wildcard teams, went through all the over-unders. Don't want to miss that. I'll do a little brief recap here at the end when we're talking playoff bracket, so we get an idea of how the whole picture is going to unfold. But if you want to listen to each over-under, you agree with kind of the case for each of the teams, hey, maybe if you're the betting type, you stand to win some dough. I don't know. We'll see how accurate these picks are. I'll actually probably repost this later on, towards the end of the season, just to see what my batting average was. But again, first part talked about AFC. Now let's just dive right into the NFC. So starting out with the NFC East, this could be the worst division in football. Certainly the worst division in the NFC. And really it's a coin flip. Last year, Dak Prescott tears up his leg. A Cowboys team that had a really bad defense and a pretty good offense just got worse. Andy Dalton comes in relief, and the Cowboys finish below 500 in yet another disappointing Cowboys season. There have been a lot of those this side of 2000 of the century. The Washington football team, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the Redskins are no longer a thing. Washington football team in their first season as the Washington football team wins the division at 7-9. I think that was only the third time a team with an under 500 record has won the division. And look, it's easy to make fun of that, make fun of the division, make fun of the team. But the football team over in Washington, really nice defense. I mean, all honesty, they gave the Bucks probably their biggest challenge. Maybe you could argue the Saints, but make no bones about it. The Washington team never led, but they were right there, neck and neck, couple plays away from winning that game. Look, Bucks comfortably won it, but the point I'm making with Washington is they're not that far off. They're going to come in with an even better defense. Chase Young, that whole unit is going to be in another season under Ron Rivera's defense. Look, we're coming into a season after the weird COVID year of 2020. There's no training camp, no preseason. Teams are going to look a lot better coming into this season than they did, of course, last season. You've also got the Giants and the Eagles. The Giants, it's always going to come down to Daniel Jones. They've got a ton of talent on offense with all the different receivers. They've, of course, got Saquon Barkley coming back from injury. You got Evan Ingram at tight end. Tons of talent, and it always is just going to come back to Daniel Jones. What can he do? I'm not big on their line, so I really don't think they're going to be able to keep him on both feet. And then the last part of the NFC least is my pick for last place team, again, which would be the Philadelphia Eagles. Ever since this team won the Super Bowl, they've just gone backwards. The whole act like you've been there before, they didn't do that. Wentz falls apart, they ship him out of town, they draft Jalen Hurts. I guess give them credit for drafting a quarterback since they may have seen the Wentz thing coming ahead of time. But, they're still going to be a mess. They bring in Gardner Minshew to be a backup, which actually makes sense when you look at Hurts and how he plays versus having Flacco as the backup. Not a very talented team. So diving into the over-unders, which way does this division go? I don't think it's likely that under 500 wins the division again, even though this is probably now that I'm looking at it, this will be the weakest division winner that I have throughout the entire NFL season. And I have Dallas winning this one. Their over-under is 9, which is a tough over-under. you're really banking on Dak being healthy, which right now reports show maybe he's not. Maybe it's kind of that baseball pitcher injury. Either way, look, Dallas, if you don't make the playoffs this year, we got to talk. There's major. If Dallas doesn't make the playoffs this year, McCarthy's gone. I think Jerry Jones has to look in the mirror and say, "Damn, Jerry, we need to do something different." There's too much talent. There's too much talent on the offensive side of the football. Now, granted, the defense isn't very good, although I think they're going to be a lot better than what they were last year. They improve at the coach position. No more Mike Nolan there. No more hot sauce in the eyes. But, with Micah Parsons, they've got a nice little linebacking core. And I think when you look at the offense, it's just there's too much talent there not to win the division. Now, that being said, I've got them barely over 9 wins. Again, I don't think you're winning the division 8-9. I think this year they're going to have an over 500. Look, it's happened 3 times. It's not going to happen back-to-back seasons. So at 9 wins, I've got them slightly over. I see them going 10-7, winning the division. Right behind them is Washington. Their over-under is 8.5. And again, as I mentioned in the first episode, the source for these win totals are Bovada. So with Washington at 8.5, I've got them barely over. I think Washington goes 9-8. I think they're barely going to miss the playoffs. I've got 3 teams going 9-8 in the NFC, tied for 7th, that 7 seed. And, of course, only one can win. They're not coming out of this division, though. I think Washington just misses. Look, Fitzmagic at quarterback is fine, but how many teams have gone through the Fitzpatrick experiment? Pretty much the entire AFC East, except for New England. He's had some time with the Rams, Bengals, Texans know him very well, obviously. So, look, he's a good stopgap for sure. I think that Washington's going to, next year with the new logo, hopefully, unless they stick with Washington football team, new name, new brand, they're going to have a big name under center, or at least somebody. It wasn't Haskins. They let him go. I think Fitzpatrick is a stopgap. And I like their defense a lot. Would I be shocked if Washington is back-to-back AFC or NFC least division winner? No. But I do think that Dallas wins this division at 10-7. Although I do have Washington barely hitting the over on that 8.5. I got them going 9-8, so over. Now the other 2, I've got unders. The Giants at 7 wins, Philadelphia at 6.5. I've got 2 unders there. For the Giants, I know they've been kind of a hot name, hot team. They drafted Tony. That's yet another receiver adding to their depth. They really put it on towards the end of the year, and they won a handful of their games. Kind of reminds me of the Dolphins from 2 years ago, where they start out 0-7, finish 5-11. The G-Men were, I want to say, 0-7, and then finished 6-10. So, look, they gave the Bucs a tough game on a Thursday night. I just don't think Daniel Jones does enough. I think that he continues to make mistakes. I don't know how I feel. Joe Judge, I guess he's fine as a coach. Still remains to be seen. But 7 wins, again, could they do it? Yeah. I just don't see it. I think the schedule is pretty tough. It's not very forgiving. I think they're going to start out slow, just because of the schedule. So I've got the Giants going under 7 wins. And then Philly, 6.5 wins. I definitely have the under here. I think they're an underrated pick for possibly worst team in the league. Now, between the Texans, Jags, Bengals, Lions, that's a lot of competition for worst team in the league, but Philly is right there. They've just been a mess. The coach, he's going to give you good sound bites. Who knows if he's going to give you any good of a game plan. Sirianni, sounds like somebody from Sopranos. Look, I don't see the Eagles doing a whole lot this year. I think it's more likely that you see Minshew playing at the end of the year under center because it didn't work out with Hurts or he got hurt. No pun intended, obviously. I just don't see a lot with this Eagles team. Miles Sanders, no. So Dallas wins the division 10-7. I've got them as the one playoff team from this division. They go over their 9 win total. Got Washington going over 8.5. Got the Giants going under 7 and the Eagles going under 7. Shifting gears to the NFC North. Another drama division. So we've got last year's winner, the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back 13-3 seasons, back-to-back NFC title games, back-to-back shellackings. I'll give him credit. They kind of made a run for it there at the end, but Tampa and Tampa Bay just ran away with that one. But look, we've got the whole Rodgers debacle this offseason. He's pissed that they draft Jordan Love. He has some issues with Gutekunst and management. This could be one of those seasons from hell in the makings. But you look at the rest of the division, and I don't see a ton of competition in there. The Vikings, I kind of like to bounce back, have a better season. The Bears, awful O-line, obviously issues at quarterback. The Trubisky era is over. Now they're going to bring in the Fields era, but he's not going to start yet. That goes to Andy Dalton. We saw how that went with Dallas, which surprisingly, though, if you look at the second half of the season, his numbers did look pretty decent. But Dalton will perform when he's got a good team around him. And though the Bears were a playoff team last year, they were barely a playoff team. 500, 7 seed. The line got worse. Look, their defense is going to be good, and I think the defense alone could win a couple of games. But a 7.5 over-under, that's pretty steep. And, granted, if they don't get over that mark, Nagy's probably gone. You've probably got a new head coach next year. But I think it's in Chicago's best interest to keep Dalton playing for a while. You don't want to put a young quarterback behind a shitty line, have him develop bad habits. Look, I live in Houston. I saw that happen with David Carr. Obviously, Fields has a very different skill set than that, and I'm a Fields fan, but that's also why I don't think you want to put him in a position to fail. Chicago's going to have a tough year. Too many questions, too many question marks. They were already kind of flaccid, in seasons past. I don't know. I don't have high hopes for Chicago. You look at Detroit. Boy, I have no hopes for Detroit. So, of course, the big news from the offseason, Matt Stafford gets traded to the Rams for Goff. So now you've got Goff under center. The awful Matt Patricia era is over, and they bring in Dan Campbell. So you go from this faux wannabe Belichick hard ass to the ultimate guy's guy players coach. I think that Detroit will probably have fun as a team. I think they'll have some good camaraderie and all that. But, they weren't winning when they had Stafford, who I think is a very underrated quarterback. Spoiler alert. We'll get more into that later. But yeah, I just don't. Man, they're gonna struggle to win many games. Detroit, they're gonna be if not Houston, Detroit is in the running for that number 1 pick next year, and who knows? Maybe that will help them pack it up and turn it around. I don't see it. So the over-unders, where do we see this division going? Well, I still think, regardless of where you think Rodgers plays next year, he's in Green Bay this year. Top 5, top 10 talent ever, quarterback position, one of the best quarterbacks ever. I don't see it ending. He's still got a lot in the tank. Look, guy threw 48 touchdowns last year, runaway MVP. I think you're going to see more of that. This is the 3rd year under that Matt LaFleur offense. I've got Green Bay going over their 10 win total. They're going to win this division. I've got them winning probably 12. I don't think they're as good as the teams from the past. I don't. And I think that there's still a decent chance this is the last year that Rodgers plays in Green Bay. But again, he's in Green Bay this season. I think they get enough done to win the division. And second place, I've got the Minnesota Vikings. So their over-under wins total is 9. This is the one and only push that I have. I think they go exactly 9-8. They get that 7 seed, and they are the final wild card spot in the NFC. Now, hey, push, that's kind of a cop-out. If I had to pick an over or an under, I'd probably lean over. am I a fan of Cousins? No, but I think that Zimmer's a pretty good coach. I think on the defensive side of the ball, even though they've lost some people over the last few years, they find a way to get it done. The Vikings find a way to just remain relevant. To me, they're kind of the NFC's version of the Steelers. At least the last 10 years have gone that way. They haven't had, obviously, nearly the, title town success that Pittsburgh has over their entirety. But I think when you look at the last 10 years, they're a team that's always going to be right there in the playoff picture, very streaky, and always seems to do the opposite what you think. They always surprise you feel. But I think with Minnesota, they've got enough talent there. They're going to be that final playoff spot. I've got them pushing at 9, but again, if we had to pick an over and under, I'll go over. Chicago, Detroit, I've got the opposite. I've got 2 unders here. Listen, I gave you the case for Chicago having a bad year. The O-line really needs some work. I don't like the idea of Dalton under center, but I also don't like the idea of rushing a rookie in Fields out there and having him develop bad habits. I really don't like that. So for all those reasons, Chicago's they're gonna go under 7.5. Maybe a new coach next year. Next year Fields will be under center, but I mean, hey, he might take over at some point this year, which I think is reasonable and fairly expectable, but I don't like the idea of him starting game 1. So good thing for Chicago fans. You're not going to rush him out there to develop bad habits, but you have to wait to see him, which does kind of suck because I'm sure Andy Dalton football, it's probably not great rooting for him. And then Detroit, look, 4.5 wins, under. This was almost a lock for me. Who are they beating? They're not beating anybody in this division. I think they play Philly. That one's, maybe. They're not going to go winless, to be sure, but I really don't like Detroit's chances of winning 5 games. I've got them definitely going under 4.5. So, got Green Bay winning the division, going over 10 wins. Minnesota, push at 9, but we'll say over 9. Chicago and Detroit both under their win totals to kind of round out the bottom of the NFC North.
Excuse me, I'm talking to you. Hey. JK. But what's up, everybody? It's your boy Jacquees from the Don't Let Me podcast. Do me a favor. Head over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button when you get the chance, okay? The cool thing is when you subscribe, you'll be the first one to get all of our unfiltered takes on today's latest controversies, current events, society, and relationship talks from a guy's perspective right when it's published. How dope is that, right? So you can find our link on the show notes. Please help us grow. Spread the word about Don't At Me and the rest of our Repertoire family of podcasts. All right, let's get back to it.
All right, NFC South. We are now looking at the defending Super Bowl champs division, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's just take a moment here to respect the great, Tom Brady. All the haters out there, man, it was beautiful seeing that last year. I've been a Tom guy since day one. You all know this. People that know me have known I'm a Brady stan. I've got a poster that I'm looking at right now from Super Bowl 51 in my, in the Stonehenge, in the study, in the studio. Bucks last year, 7-5, a lot of growing pains, initial part of the season. The offense kind of looks like they're confused. They're not really hitting on all cylinders. A lot of injuries early on in the year, just kind of nagging injuries, keeping the full lineup from being in there. But still, with that, they find a way to go 6-2, lose 3 out of 4. They're 7-5, and the last game against the Chiefs was the last game that they lost all season. They fall behind quickly, find a way to bounce back. Almost get it, but of course the Tyreek Hill little automatic fourth down play happens, and that was the last game that they had lost. Tampa goes on, runs the slate from there, wins 8 in a row, including the playoffs, Super Bowl, first home team to first of all play in their stadium, first team to play in their own stadium for the Super Bowl. So of course they're the first team to win in their home stadium. A lot of high hopes for Tampa this year. Their over-under is 12, which is pretty high. I've got them barely going over that. I've got Tampa going 13-4, being the 1 seed in the NFC. I mean, look, they bring back all their starters. I think they have, fewer than 10 players total new to the team, with the vast majority of those being rookies. So, I mean, they had the luxury of drafting for depth. They bring everybody back. They add Gio Bernard. I like this Joe Tryon as another depth pass rusher. They're going to be tough. If you told me that Tampa was going to repeat, I wouldn't be shocked. The only reason I don't have them repeating, spoiler alert, is that it just simply doesn't happen. The last team to repeat were the Pats, in Super Bowl 38 and 39. It doesn't really happen much. You almost had a repeat last year with the Chiefs. We almost had a repeat Super Bowl 49 with Seattle, but Brady is the dynasty buster. He stopped Seattle from their back-to-back. He stopped KC from their back-to-back. So, I mean, right now the money is on Tampa representing the NFC. I wouldn't be shocked, but because repeats just typically don't happen, it's really hard to do. That's the one reason I'm betting against them. There's no logic to that whatsoever. But Tampa, 12 wins. I've got them going over at 13-4. Now we've got the rest of the division, which is kind of a toss-up. We've got the Saints, who, they've pretty much run this division the last couple of, decades. I can't even say run the division, though, because this division is infamous for people not repeating. I think there's been one repeat champion in the last 10, 20 years, and I'm damn near certain that'll change this year. Bucs are going to win that division again at least. But the rest of the division is pretty interesting. You've got Carolina, who has Matt Rule, this new regime. It looks like they're at least playing harder, fighting. They tried to kick a ridiculous record field goal to beat the Chiefs last year. And they, have they make that field goal, they win that game. They were in a lot of close games. And I think that Carolina is one of those good, bad teams that could really upset anybody any given day. Is it sustained? I don't know, especially with Matt Darnold under center. Who knows? And then, of course, you've got Atlanta. So with Atlanta, you've got Matt Ryan coming back, new coach and Arthur Smith. No more Julio Jones. Didn't mention that in the AFC pod. He's over with the Titans, but I didn't mention it because I don't know that he's that much of an impact player anymore. Still great receiver. I think he's a Hall of Famer, one of the best receivers we've seen. I don't know that he does enough, though, that they're going to miss him all that much in Atlanta, especially when you draft an automatic tight end who's just going to be, hey, let's just pencil him into the Pro Bowl indefinitely until he retires. So NFC South is going to be somewhat competitive. I think with the Saints, the biggest gap there, of course, is going from Breeze to Jameis Winston. I mean, Jameis is infamous for turning the ball over. I think with Sean Payton, he'll clean some of that up. They'll be fun at times. But, I mean, their over-under total is pretty high. So let's just go right through them. Atlanta. Over-under at 7.5. I have them going over. I've got them going 9-8, just barely. I mean, heck, they can go 8-9, under 500, and still go over their win total, which I think is going to happen. I think Matt Ryan is at least a decent quarterback. Again, the receiving core with Ridley and Pitts, I mean, they're going to be a pretty decent offense. Running back, a lot of questions, but Arthur Smith, he finds a way with that offense. So I can see them going 9-8, maybe pushing Minnesota for that final playoff spot. I don't love Atlanta, but I don't think they're going to suck either. They were in a lot of close games last year that they just found slip through their fingertips, including that ridiculous Cowboys game where everybody just sitting there watching the onside kick. I see Atlanta going 9-8, going over their 7.5 wins total. The other two I've got going under. So 2 overs, 2 unders in the NFC South. New Orleans over-under is 9. And I think that is a ridiculous number. Now, granted, they're a few plays away from beating the Bucs in the playoffs. Maybe they beat Green Bay, and go to the Super Bowl, and play the Chiefs. I mean, they were right there. They played the Chiefs last year, and it was kind of competitive, kind of close to the end. But, you're losing one of the best 10 quarterbacks ever. Certainly one of the most decorated from a stat standpoint. And look, you're replacing him with a guy that's thrown 5,000 yards in a season, but who has never had a history of success in the NFL. I think 9 wins is a tall over-under. I've got them going under, and that's actually one of my locks. I've got them going under 9 wins. Lock that one in. I just think that there's too much talent around in the rest of the conference, the rest of the league, going from Breeze to Winston. It's too much of an ask. I see them going under 9 wins. And Carolina, 7.5 wins. I've got them going just under. So with Atlanta and Carolina, they're both at 7.5. Your money is going to be on one of them going over or under. I guess in this case, I trust Matt Ryan more than I trust Sam Darnold to get that done. But I could easily see those being flip-flopped. I think Carolina and Atlanta will give any good team a tough game. I don't think they're, serious threats, but they've got enough talent that they'll win some ball games. And finally, the best division in all of football, the NFC West. So what happens last year? Last year you've got this San Francisco just decimated with injuries. I mean, Garoppolo doesn't play a whole lot, but what else is new? You've got Bosa. You've got, name it. Insert star name. They were hurt last year. So this year they're coming back. You've got, Trey Lance as a backup. Way too raw, not ready yet to play. So you'll see Garoppolo, although you might see some fun packages, maybe some weird Taysom Hill type stuff. You've got the Seahawks, who won the division last year. Seattle, just not talked about, not spoken of all that much. When you think about their quarterback, Russell Wilson, you think about their coach, Pete Carroll, you think about their track record. They, they're one of those teams that you can't just blink at and say, oh, no big deal. On the other side of that, to play devil's advocate, since the Super Bowl loss against the Pats, I think the only playoff win they have was that fluky Vikings game where Blair Walsh misses a layup field goal, So they haven't had as much offensive success. Russell Wilson makes some grumblings in the offseason that he's, unhappy with some of the things the team's doing. They help address that and put some size on the line and, kind of bolster that a little bit. He was running for his life a lot last year, and that was ultimately what cost Seattle a chance at deeper playoff success. They come into a Rams team who just stuffs it down their face and wins with a one-armed Goff. So, of course, the Rams, last year, wild card team, one of the best. I think they had the best defense in the league. I think stats will back that up in certain categories too. But Aaron Donald, best player in the league. They did have some turnover in the secondary from this season, or from last season to this season, and they lost Staley, of course, head coach over for the Chargers now, and the other LA team. But they get Matt Stafford. You're talking about a team that was right there at the cusp. They went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and Goff just completely shit the bed. If he gives you a halfway decent performance, they possibly win that Super Bowl. They lose 13-3 to the Pats. So the Rams, last year, the Goff experiment finally ends. I'll give him credit. Dude had one arm and he beat Seattle. The Packers game kind of got ugly and got away from them. But the Rams, again, like I said, you've got Donald. You've got Jalen Ramsey, who I think could be the best corner in the league. They're going to do some really creative, interesting things on the defense with him now with the new defensive coordinator. So the Rams have a lot of high hopes, and I haven't even mentioned the other team in this division who's made maybe the most noise in the offseason, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. Bringing Kyler Murray back for his third year. He made a huge leap last year. They were kind of everybody's fun, sexy team last year. But let's not forget, they started out 6-3, which included a Hail Mary victory over the Bills, and ended up missing the playoffs that year. So, look, I don't have a ton of trust in Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think he's a great coach. They really went all in with some of the free agent pickups that they had on veterans who are arguably over the hill. They're bringing in AJ Green. I mean, how many of you all listening have had him on your fantasy team and have been let down by him? Okay, now all of you listening can put your hands down. Bringing in J.J. Watt. Look, all-timer, Hall of Fame first ballot player. I'd make the case he was probably the MVP in 2011. But that was 10 years ago. And he's with a new team. I think they're paper champions for sure. We also don't know what's going to happen with Larry Fitzgerald. Is he coming back? Is he retiring? Is it one of those things like Roger Clemens with the Yankees back in the day where it's a midseason, okay, I think I'll play. But I think if you look at that, top to bottom, that is the best division in the NFL. The Cardinals, I think, are the worst team in the division. And, I mean, heck, they could probably win the NFC East running away. So, the over-unders, I like 3 teams from this division to make the playoffs. I like the Seahawks, the Rams, and the 49ers to make the playoffs. I mean, look, the 49ers, when healthy, are a Super Bowl team, right? They made it 2 years ago. The Rams, they made the Super Bowl the year before that, so they're right there. The Seahawks, they've made the Super Bowl twice in the last 10 years, won one of them. So we've got a lot of good teams that have been good for a while now, right? Arizona, that would be the one, like I said, some people might include, hey, they're the sexy fun pick. So, hey, if you think that that's the team to run away with it, I won't fault you for it, but I don't see it going that way. So each of those 3 3 of those playoff teams, their over-unders are double digits, which is really steep. But again, not only do I think this is the best division in football, I think these are 3 of maybe the top 7 teams, 8 teams in the league. Outside of Tampa, I mean, if you add Tampa to the mix, those are the 4 best in the NFC, no question in my opinion, in my mind. So I don't think it's crazy to say that they're going to be 3 division winners here. I think it's also not crazy to think that 3 of those will be overs. So the Rams are at 10.5 wins, lock that they're going to go over that number. I've got that as a lock. Like I said, you're bringing in the league's best defense. You're bringing in a very innovative, high-flying offense with a better quarterback than you had the year before, and a really good head coach. I think the Rams are really somebody to watch out for. Wink, wink. The Niners, 10.5 wins. I've got them going over. Now, this is going to probably be entirely based on their health. If they start getting injuries like they did last year, they're going to fall apart quickly. And I think that if Trey Lance has to start, a couple of games, 4 games. If he's starting 4 games or more, they're not making the playoffs because that means Jimmy's hurt or underperforming. And, let's face it, quarterback is the most important position. I think Trey Lance, I'm happy with the pick. I say you bet high in a situation like that. All this upside, all this talent. Obviously, it's going to come down to him figuring it out. It's a complex offense. I just don't see that happening in the first year. Maybe if he plays mid-season, towards the end of the year, he starts picking it up. I think it's either likely that the Niners make the playoffs with a healthy Jimmy, like I described, or if he underperforms or gets hurt and Trey Lance is starting, then I think that Niners fans have to adjust expectations, and at that point, hope that you're going into next season seeing some good signs out of Trey Lance. But I have them making the playoffs. I have them going over 10.5 wins. Seattle at 10, I've got them going over 10 wins. That would also be possibly a lock. I guess the debate there is who's running the ball. Do you really think Chris Carson's going to get it done? What's going on with Dwayne Brown? Are they going to be able to bring him back? You've got DJ Metcalf, great receiver who's only getting better. Opposite side of the ball, you've got Lockett, really good, shifty guy. Their new version of Doug Baldwin. And, of course, Russell Wilson. You've got on the defensive side all the names that they've been having for all these years. I think the secondary is a little bit more questionable than maybe we all would like to admit. But I think saying Seattle is going to have fewer than 10 wins is crazy to me. I don't see Russell Wilson going 9-8. I think they're an over. And I would even almost say that they're a lock. I have them winning that division. As much as I like the Rams, and again, we'll get into that in a minute, I think from a regular season standpoint, Seattle has less turnover. They have fewer questions. I've got them going over that and winning the division. Because, look, they know who their quarterback is. There aren't any questions about that. Stafford, I like a lot more than Goff, but there are going to probably be some growing pains, at least initially. San Francisco, especially running back. I didn't even mention that. The Rams running back situation. I mean, Sony Michel, they could end up passing the ball, a ridiculous lopsided amount compared to how many times they run the ball, especially with Cam Akers being down. And then last, the Cardinals. 8.5 is their over-under. I've got them going under. Barely. I've got them going 8 and 9, but I've got them going under. I mean, listen, they're, in my mind, a distant fourth best team in that division. They've got a tough road ahead. They're going to have a lot of expectations, people playing them, thinking, oh, well, we're playing a playoff team, so people are going to give them their everything. I don't see the Cardinals making it. So, as a quick recap, NFC East, your division winner is the Dallas Cowboys. I've got them going over 9 wins. I've got your Washington football team going over 8.5 wins, barely missing the playoffs. The Giants, under 7. The Eagles, under 6.5. NFC North, I've got your Green Bay Packers going over 10 wins. Minnesota, a push, but I'll say over, if I have to say one or the other, 9 wins. And that's your 7th and final wild card spot. I've got the Chicago Bears going under 7.5. I've got Detroit Lions going under 4.5 wins. NFC South, Tampa gets it done, wins division again, over 12 wins. Got Atlanta, second place in that division, barely missing the playoffs, over 7.5 wins. I've got New Orleans, under 9. Carolina, under 7.5. New Orleans, under 9, a lock. In the NFC West, the Rams, over 10.5 wins. Lock that one in. San Francisco, over 10.5 wins. Seattle, over 10 wins. Each of those 3 teams making the playoffs, with Seattle winning the NFC West. And then Arizona, under 8.5 wins. So let's take a look here at our bracket. NFC. So we talked a little bit about Tampa and Tampa Bay. Who were the last 2 teams to beat them? One was the Chiefs. That was in Week 13, dropping the Bucs from 7-4 to 7-5. Could have been seen as the game to end the season, but instead they go to a bye week, feeling good about themselves. They don't look back. They don't lose again. Team right before that to beat them, your Los Angeles Rams. Defense was just a lot, made Brady very uncomfortable. I remember watching that game, getting pissed off, thinking, he looks old, goes on to win the Super Bowl. But, couple that with a high-flying offense and a good coach and a team that's just been there knocking on the door. I think a lot of the times in the league, you see those teams that get over certain humps, right? They've been to the playoffs. They've been to the Super Bowl. They've had high expectations. They've done all this. So the Rams are a team I'd really want to say, hey, let's keep an eye on them. Seattle, there's not a lot to dislike about that. There really isn't. Seattle's a really good team. I think they could represent the NFC. I wouldn't be shocked if you told me that. I don't think their defense is as automatic as it used to be, which is one big worry that I have. I don't think the running game is as reliable as it used to be, which I think is very much understated how much the impact that Marshawn Lynch had on that team. But neither here nor there. Green Bay, I mean, do you think they're going to get it done this year? If they hadn't been able to get it done the last 2 years without all the drama and without Devontae Adams saying possibly, we'll see. This feels like their last dance, so maybe, but it's hard to say that Rodgers is going to play better than he did last year because he was an MVP, 48 touchdowns. They go 13-3 back-to-back years. They're hosting the NFC title game. They lose to Tampa Bay. So I don't really see that happening. So let's just talk about the bracket. So 2 seed, Seattle Seahawks playing the 7 seed Minnesota Vikings. I've got Seattle winning that one. If you have Atlanta making this spot instead, I still see Seattle winning that game. But that's the first one we've got. Green Bay as your 3 seed versus your 6 seed San Francisco 49ers. Hey, so the Niners own the pack at this point. I mean, they might as well be paying rent at Lambeau because, even going back to the Kaepernick era, the Niners have just had the Packers' number. They're physical. They run the ball. They shove it down their throat. I see the Rodgers era ending with a loss to the Niners. And I mean, kind of symbolic. There were rumors that the Niners were asking about his services this offseason, or he was told that maybe he was going to go there. All kind of rumors that you hear. I just don't really love Green Bay's team. I don't think they play well against those physical teams. And the Niners are physical. I think their defense is going to be just as good, if not better, than what it was during the Super Bowl run. So they're going to be tough. I've got the Niners with the upset there. And then we've got a Cowboys-Rams rematch, 4-5. Look, Dallas is in the playoffs from my perspective by default. You have to have an NFC East division winner. I've got Dallas doing that. But I've got them losing to the 5 seed Rams. So, fast forward, round 2. Really like these matchups. I hope I'm right about this just because of the matchups. But we've got a Tampa Bay San Francisco 49ers matchup. We've got Brady versus Garoppolo in the playoffs. As much as I like San Francisco in this spot, and I actually kind of like how they match up, I think Tampa's just going to be too much. They're going to be fired up. Hey, this is our first home playoff game since the Super Bowl. We're the 1 seed. We've been just knocking people out. I think they're going to be too much for the 49ers. You look at Seattle and L.A., well, L.A.'s kind of owned the Seahawks as of late. Regular season is usually, coin toss. This is usually the rubber match, right? And the Rams have been winning those. At least the last 2, 3, 4 years they have. They've been the better of these two teams. So I like Stafford coming in, shocking the world, upsetting the Seahawks in Seattle, going to the NFC title game. And what do we have here? We've got a Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams NFC title game. This makes me think of the Rams era from the beginning, where they're out there beating these Bucs teams 6-5 or whatever those final scores are. I don't think it's going that way. I think this will be more of a high-flying affair, kind of like the game last year where they play in its 27-24 final for the Rams. And shocker, what did I tell you earlier? Teams just don't seem to repeat. So for that reason, I got the Rams upsetting here. And if you're a betting type, the Rams odds are somewhere in that 14 to 15 to 1 range to win it all. I'd put money down because I have the Rams going to the Super Bowl. If you listen to the first part about the AFC preview, you'll know that I have the Baltimore Ravens representing the AFC. So your Super Bowl for Super Bowl 56, Los Angeles Rams playing the Baltimore Ravens. And funny enough, that would be another home team, right? Another home team Super Bowl. I've got the Rams winning it this year. Your Super Bowl winner for Super Bowl 56 is Los Angeles Rams. Why? I think they're the most well-rounded team. I think that they've got the best defense in the league. I think their offense is really nice. I think, it really sucks to lose Cam Akers, and I'm not a big Sony Michel fan, but McVay finds a way to get it done. Akers is relatively new. I like to say, all right, well, let's see somebody do it for a while, right? So just because you're losing somebody they've been good, albeit, it's not something that I would necessarily guarantee. So even with all that, more often than not, it happens to be how the bracket falls out. They would play, in this scenario, Dallas, gimme win. They would play Seattle, which is tough, but they know them well. And then they'd end with Tampa, who they match up well with. I think on paper, Tampa may be the best team in the league, but the Rams match up well with them. Brady he struggled with that Rams defense. He really has. There was even a game back in the, I want to say it was 2016, where, him versus Goff, when it was an awful Rams team with Jeff Fisher. And I remember him struggling then. So, there's your Super Bowl, Rams over Ravens. Of course, thank you for listening to the Over Unders pod. A lot of good stuff coming to y'all this season. We're going to do every Tuesday morning, every Thursday morning an episode. We're going to do game recaps, kind of talking big picture stories. We're also going to do some game previews. And come basketball season, we're going to do a lot of fun things with that. Similar over-under, probably do some 2K ratings discussions, a lot of stuff. So be sure to rate, listen, and subscribe to Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Subscribe to all the Repertoire podcasts, including Don't At Me and Play It By Ear. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. So stay tuned. Tell some friends about Unsportsmanlike Conduct, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Yeah, that was a good one.